Have you ever heard a story of somebody doing something for somebody else? Now, I mean the type of story that's heartwarming, eye-watering, of a video that you may have watched on social media. Yeah, those type of stories are so inspiring because it always moves us when we see somebody doing something heroic for another person. Now, we may not actually save the whole world, but we can do something really special for the people right in front of us. Let's look at Jesus. Now, Jesus actually did save the whole world, but that's not all he did. Jesus showed heroic love, kindness, and care for the people that were right in front of him. Think of the disciples. When Jesus took them and actually washed their feet, Jesus showed heroic love to the people around him. And he's inviting us to do the same because heroes care for the people in front of them.
Hey youths, I don't have my wife just scream in the background at random intervals like Michael, so sorry that you're going to miss out on that. I did have to go outside a little bit because it's day 1023 of the pandemic, near as I can tell. So you're probably going crazy like I am. We talk about that all the time. Hang in there. So this is week 2 of this series called Origin Stories, and we've been talking a lot about superheroes. And I think the one thing we can agree on is that the best superhero movie ever made was The Incredibles. And if you don't think that, then you're wrong. But so one of the questions is, what's a superhero's main job? Is it the story always is they got superpowers from somewhere, lab accident, or they were born with them. They're aliens. They're mutants. Or if you're Batman, you're rich. But in any case, what's their job? What do they do? And it's not just to battle weird people. It's what makes them a superhero and not a supervillain is that they help people. And that's kind of the idea we're going to look at today, is the idea of helping people. The modern trend is to subvert that trope and have the superhero movies who they're quote superheroes, but they're not just in it to help people. A couple that I can think of is Deadpool, sort of that way. The Boys on Amazon. I don't recommend anybody watch any of these because they're not the nicest movies, but they're interesting. So the question is, how do we apply that to us? This is one of the things that Jesus modeled for us. And so in John chapter 13, I want to read just a little picture from his life. And it's probably something you've heard before. If I can find a place to hold this. It says, before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to the Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. It was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and would return to God. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him. When Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you don't understand now what I am doing, but someday you will. No, Peter protested, you will never, ever wash my feet. Jesus replied, lost my place, unless I wash you, you won't belong to me. Simon Peter exclaimed, then wash my hands and head as well, Lord, not just my feet. Jesus replied, a person who is bathed all over does not need to wash except for the feet, to be entirely clean. And you disciples are clean, but not all of you. For Jesus knew who would betray him. That is what he meant when he said, none of you are clean. After washing their feet, he put on his robe again and sat down and asked, do you understand what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, because that is what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. I tell you the truth, slaves are not greater than their master, nor is the messenger more important than the one who sends the message. Now that you know these things, God will bless you for doing them. So, like I said, we've seen this story before. You've read this story before. And I don't know if you've ever thought about what actually happened there. Feet really gross some people out. I don't quite get that because they don't gross me out. But I mean, it's the worst thing some people can imagine. And back then, people walked around in sandals all day, for one, so their feet were pretty filthy. And second, they ate reclining at the table. They didn't really use chairs. They kind of laid over to the side, which sort of meant your feet were near other people's heads. And so the custom was, before you ate, you needed to have your feet washed. And typically a host would have someone that would do that. But here these guys were all together and no one had washed any feet. And finally, the person who you least would have expected, Jesus, the teacher, strips down to the waist and goes and washes everybody's feet, which is really disturbing to a lot of people. So what do we take from this? The main point here is that we need to be willing to serve other people. We need to be, that's our main job, just like superheroes. And there's sort of 4 things that we need to do to do that. First is just awareness. One of the things as I watch people, one of the frustrating things I see with a lot of young people today, and old people too, but is a lack of awareness of people around them. And I know we can blame it on phones, you can blame it on whatever, but the fact is, it's really easy. In fact, I think the electronics make it easier for us now to, if we're not actively doing something, to narrow our focus down to the screen and just look at it. You need to cultivate an awareness of the people around you. Everything from the smallest little thing of where they are physically related to you to how they are dealing with things. You just have to be aware of something beyond you. And that is a struggle. Like I said, my default mode now is if I'm bored or I'm waiting for something, to pull out the phone and do something. Just look around and see what's going on around you. That's the first thing. Second thing is listening. So to care for people, not only do you need to be aware of them and aware that they need something, but you need to be listening to them. You must listen to the things that they say. Again, that's my dog. Again, we all have this habit of listening, but not really. You hear them talking, and as soon as they I don't know what the dogs are barking at. As soon as they start saying something that triggers a story in your head, you stop thinking about what they're saying, and you're like, all right, what am I going to, I've got to tell them this cool thing that happened to me, or this thing I want to talk about. All right. Maybe Brian will edit this out. Maybe he won't. But actively listening to what people are saying. And part of that, too, is in interpretation. Listen to what they say, but also try to understand why they're saying it. If I hear somebody really angry at somebody else, or really angry about, let's say, coronavirus, you're stuck at home, and I can't believe we're stuck here at home. What's the real thing that they are really upset about? Are they lonely? I think a lot of us are that. And that's making them angry that they're stuck here and can't go out with somebody else. They're probably frustrated. Things like this. So listen to what people say and try to figure out what they're actually saying. And flip that around too, and before you say something, interpret what they will take that as. Make sure that what you say isn't going to make things worse, or if they're going to take it the wrong way. So that interpreting this communication, this speech back and forth between you and the people you're caring about is something you need to work on. And finally, just generally, the idea is sensitivity. we need to be sensitive to things that we don't necessarily understand. People are in situations that we don't understand. I'll give a real simple example here, and this is a race-based one. I'm not sure that white people can understand what black people go through sometimes, because we've not been there. We've not experienced people thinking the worst of us just because we look a certain way. Things like that. So when you deal with people, and actually this is the big thing, our goal is to serve people, to care for people. And so right now, one thing you can do, you're stuck in your house, you're sick of your parents, you're sick of your siblings. How can you care for them? Maybe it's something as simple as putting the dishes away for your folks, or making your bed, or maybe wearing pants once in a while. But as Christians, part of our origin story, part of our superhero identity is to always be aware and ready to care for people. I think that's one of the things that should set Christians apart from everybody else, that we should be that group that's known not for posting mean stuff on Facebook or, quote, hating somebody, but it should be the group that we know that they did these incredible things, that they built these houses for poor people in Mexico. They fed the hungry kids in Mount Carmel whenever, basically all the time, because in the summer when it was hard to get food. So that's your challenge this week. Look for ways to serve those around you and care for those who you run across.